Hi, Natalie.
Hello, Miss Jane.
Thank you for agreeing to be live with me today in Fans of the Framework, LinkedIn, and whole bunch of other places. So I'd like to introduce to my audience Natalie Tollefson. She is the manager of business operations, which is, as we were just talking about, quite a few hats she's got perched on her head uh, at Gunderson Basketball Hospital and Clinics, found in Basketball, Wisconsin. So that lovely, beautiful, driftless region of Southwest Wisconsin that Sue and I have considered home for 10 years now.
There's no better place. If you haven't
There
been out here, you got to come visit.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Drive right along that river. So I was so excited when Natalie agreed to talk with me today about the dreaded whirlwind. And
Mhm.
actually, your initiative champion, Kelsey Lund, and your CEO recommended that I interview you. So it's one of those high performing things. You've got another hat you have, a high performer. And what they said was is that you had agreed to talk about your own experience and how you organize your day to your
Mhm.
leaders at a quarterly leadership training. But first I kind of want to explain for our audience why in our leadership bundle, we one of our tactics is managing change. And one of the eight most common barriers to being a successful leader or managing change is what we refer to as the whirlwind. Now, lots of
Mhm.
people refer to it as something different, right? It's the vortex. And whenever we're in Arizona, it's always called the vortex. It's the day job. It's the part of my job I hate, or it's the part of the job I love because I hate sitting down and doing paperwork. But
Mhm.
whatever it is, it prevents leaders from really adopting change well. It's a giant barrier. And you know what? Staff members have it too.
Mhm.
It's not just leaders. I mean, employees, when you're trying to validate change with them, they'll tell you, but I couldn't get out of, I couldn't get out of these conversations. I couldn't have get this. So it might be census and acuity for a clinical leader. It could be a certain employee for another leader,
Mhm.
but whatever it is, it prevents us from really feeling successful in our role and sometimes being successful in our role.
Mhm.
A whirlwind is what makes you feel at the end of the day, the week, the month, the year, when you look at, did I reach my highest potential? Did I make my goals? You sit down with your senior leader, you have that dreaded, annual evaluation, and it's like, wow, I sucked this year. Like I did nothing. I moved, I didn't move the needle at all. And sometimes maybe you are successful, but it kills you, right? It makes
Mhm.
you feel worse rather than better. So, how you get great work done.
Mhm.
And I love the book, by HBR, getting the right work done. But what are Natalie's? I mean, kind of explain why you feel your executive team asked you to talk on this topic.
Well, I mean, leaders are busy people, right? And I think that leaders are not immune from feeling overwhelmed, overworked, overloaded, right? And
Right,
and we have to manage as leaders work and we have to manage home.
right.
Um, and so for myself personally, about a year and a half ago, we had did some organizational restructuring here locally at Gunderson Basketball. And with that came a lot of change for me personally. As my title says, I'm the manager of business operations, but that really doesn't give you a good idea of kind of the different hats, as you mentioned, that I wear. So, with that, I oversee our marketing and community relations, community health and wellness. I also am our foundation director, so our sole foundation employee. And with the restructure, I now have two additional departments: quality and employee health, infection prevention, and qual and risk that reports to me now. So I had to start looking at my work week differently. How am I going to make sure my new staff feel supported? That I have a lot to learn. These are new areas that I'm not a clinical leader. So I had to
Right.
learn their world. And so that took me taking a step back to really say, okay, how do I prioritize my day, my week, my months to make
Mhm.
sure that I'm getting the highest impact work done? And yes, those fires, the whirlwind, they're going to be there every day, but how do I manage the whirlwind without that whirlwind managing me? So that's how, I guess, how I started getting into this and trying to be more purposeful about planning my work. And then, like I mentioned, I had been asked to speak on prioritization and managing the whirlwind at our most recent LDI. So hence the reason I'm here talking to you today.
Yes, hence that. So I'm very impressed that you figured this crap out in a year and a half. I mean, that's really impressive. And also impressive, like you said, you had to learn it. You're not a
Mhm.
nurse.
I'm still learning, I think, and that's just it. We're always going to be learning. Things are always
Yeah.
evolving.
Yeah.
Um, but if we pause to assess and prioritize the workload, and rightfully so, I mean, then this trickles down into those we're leading, right? When they
Right.
see leaders modeling that, they start to kind of think through things and say, am I spending my time, my 24 hours? We all get the same 24 hours every day, and how we choose to fill that and spend that time is really up to us. So how do we spend it to get the greatest value, have the highest impact for our own resiliency, for our own satisfaction, and obviously for the greater good of our organizations and even our families. So kind of
Right.
blending that all together is the goal, right?
Right. Well, and I love how you say, then people can look at how you are doing it and people that you lead, even. And,
Mhm.
you really want to inspire others that, hey, don't look at me like, well, you're just organized. It's just you. It's a
Mhm.
personality style. No.
No.
It's a life hack. I mean,
Mhm.
it's learning how to be that, and we all need to be more open to learning from others. So, great idea to have you teach at the LDI so that other leaders can say, "Oh, yes, thank you. Please help
Mhm.
me. Come into my personal whirlwind and help me figure this out." So,
Mhm.
that's genius. So, if you could say the top 3 tips you had when you taught your leaders, what would they
Mhm.
be?
Number one is make a plan. So often leaders, we come in the door and the first thing we do is we get sucked into the fire or the whirlwind. And so if you can find time in your day when you feel like you're most productive or when your mind is the freshest, that's
Mhm.
the time to sit down and plan out your priorities, look out at your schedule, your meetings, and those big to-dos. In preparing for my LDI presentation, I spent a lot of time looking at and reviewing like the Eisenhower matrix of how do we make sure that we're scheduling. 80% of our time should be scheduled time where we're working on
Right.
purposeful work,
Yep.
and really looking at all the other time should
Mhm.
be delegating. Can we delegate this task? It might be really important, but does it need to be done by me? Or
Yeah.
could one of my reports do it? Or could a colleague do it? Or figuring out what does need to be urgent? It's on fire. But those
Yep.
fires, the more we plan, right, Jane, those
Mhm.
fires should become less and less.
Right.
Because if we're planning, we might be planning for some training, staff development. So the next time that fire arises,
They
they know
take
how to
care of
handle
business.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they took care of it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I did great. They got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then that's a growing experience for them and they're proud and they know they got it. Um, and then some things we're just going to have to delete, right? How
Yep.
many hours do we waste when we get our little Facebook report, or our iPhones or our smartphones tell us how much time we spent scrolling and screening?
Yeah.
You know, could our time be spent deleting some of those things, or the things that suck our energy, those unproductive behaviors, the gossiping, the worrying, are there things we can delete off so that we are focusing on the now and focusing on the high impact work?
Right.
So make a plan. I would say that's number one. That's worked for me. And obviously that plan is going to have to change. You have to be nimble and flexible,
Right.
but as long as you have a roadmap in front of you of what you need to get done,
Mhm.
it's easier when those pop-ins and those last minute meeting requests come in to say, hey, I'd love to help you out with that and I'm all for it, but this week I've got XYZ already locked up on my schedule. Is there any way we could look at the following week or the week after? You
Sure.
know, um, I think that's probably my number one. The other thing I would say is just making sure that you're taking time in your day to uh, organize with intention, I guess is my point. And so, like you mentioned, not all leaders, and myself included, just because you might outwardly appear organized, sometimes you need help with saying, God, I need help prioritizing this.
Right.
And from my own experience, I've had to go to my senior leader to say, I want to say yes to all of these things, and I think they're all very important.
Mhm.
I need your support or your direction to tell me what needs to maybe get set on a shelf for a little while, because you can't say yes to everything. Back to the one head, many hats.
Yeah.
You can't keep saying yes and piling the hats on and then still do a really great job and
Right.
be
It's not possible.
effective and protect your energy. You can't get burned out, right? That's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for those you're leading. So being able to organize with that intention and figuring out where to spend your time. And sometimes you have to go to your senior leader for that support.
Sure.
Um, and then I think the other thing too, from I guess life hacks, if you will, is make a plan, organize with intention, really think about the hats you're wearing. Um, and
Well, we recommend too that you organize with intention according to goals.
yeah,
What
yep.
goals did you and your department set? What has the organization said that they need you
Hmm.
to be working on? Goals shouldn't be worked on the week before your evaluation.
Right.
You got to eat the elephant one bite at a time
Hmm.
and eat it, many little bites throughout the
Hmm.
week.
Hmm.
And I love that you say, put something on the schedule, like actually put it in. I think that's a big, huge mistake that leaders make is they don't realize how much
Hmm.
time this work actually takes. It takes
Hmm.
time to disentangle yourself from the outside world, first of all, put away your distractions, and then focus on, what do I need to work on today to move the needle on something? What
Hmm.
what will it be? Which goal will it be? And that was I've recently began working with a group of leaders, and they were so funny. When I first got there, they were like, well, you want us to work on our goals, like that's not weekend or 4 a.m. work or midnight work. I'm like, no, 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 during the day I want you to schedule
Hmm.
time to work on this stuff. So
Hmm.
we call it vital time. We used to call it
Hmm.
sacred time, and now we call it vital time because it's vital.
Hmm. Hmm.
I also loved too, if you can kind of describe, the kind of emulate a conversation with me when someone asks you to put on another hat, when they ask you
Hmm.
to take on another role, because as we talked, what do we do? And it's not just in healthcare, it's throughout, manufacturing or whatever, is with our really high performing people that are seen to be productive, efficient, positive go-getters. What do? We keep tapping them on the shoulder.
Hmm. Hmm.
I need this done. And as an executive myself, I was guilty of it. It's like, who can I rely on? Oh yeah, that one person that I always rely on. Poof.
Hmm.
But how do you have that conversation with an executive that keeps tapping you?
Well, first, obviously, like you mentioned, it feels good, right? As leaders, when
Oh,
someone's
sure.
coming to you and they entrust you with whether it's a project or an initiative or another ask, right? Part
Yeah.
of you is like, wow, that's
Thank
really
you.
flattering. Like, thank you for thinking that I'm capable of owning this or helping to lead this XYZ. There's never going to be a shortage of good ideas, though. You know
Yeah.
that, right, Jane? That's why we have
Oh,
parking
yeah.
lots, and
Yeah.
you have to stay rooted. And this is one thing I learned through Capstone, is staying rooted in
Yeah.
the goals and
Yeah.
keeping it to one or two, three things very clear, and that
Sharp.
everybody's working in their own regard to
Yeah.
move that goal forward.
Yeah.
And I think for me personally, when I've gotten the tap, like, hey, what about this? Or there's another community event, or should we be doing this? Or, hey, we saw this great idea being done at this hospital up north. Maybe we could adopt that here. It's fantastic. And there's no shortage of goodness. It's
Yeah.
just the shortage is the fuel in the tank,
Yeah.
the boots on the ground. And
Yeah.
so I think the best way to go about it is having that transparent conversation during, whether it's an accountability meeting or during your monthly rounding, to say, hey, I want to support these things, but I need your help to decide where my time is going to be most valuable to move this organization
Yep.
where we aspire it to go. And maybe that means we need to look at our hiring structure. Maybe we need more boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, you know what, it's a great idea, but maybe that gets bumped to next year.
Sure.
Or,
Sure.
but at
Am
some
I the
point,
right person? And is this the
yes,
right time?
yeah,
And if both answers are yes, what's got to go in order for me to be able to do
yes,
this?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, help me prioritize, boss. It's we give talks all the time on managing your boss. That's one of the things you have to do.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
well, thank you. Gosh, I would have chosen you too. What?
Well, thank you. Like I said, managing our time, that's like the hardest thing to do,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So,
Yes, I bought this cute planner. I won't pick it up and show it to you because it's mortifying. But it came with all these stickers, and I spent all this money. And
mhm.
I bought one for one of our coaches, and I bought one for Sue and I both, and whatever. I gave all the stickers to my grandchildren. Like, I don't have time to do this. I mean, I like how the book is set up, but it's like, it doesn't matter. Jane, you still have to schedule the time. The
The
calendar.
stickers were not of highest impact for Jane. So we're delegating.
Yes, grandchildren now have them. Well, if you want to learn what Natalie has learned, we have our Just Start Solutions for the Leadership Bundle,
Mhm.
and you can go to our website, www.capstoneleadership.net. Check it out, book a call with us. We would love to talk to you about your whirlwind. Thanks, Natalie.
Thanks for having me.